All right, it is 7:00 p.m. It is the appointed and advertised time for our May 13th, 2019 Aleppo Township Workshop meeting. I call this meeting to order. Let's all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's have a roll call, please.
President Dobler.
Present.
Vice President Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Darrow. Commissioner Duplaga. Solicitor Lovato.
Here.
Manager Patterson.
Here.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Before we begin, well, I guess I should say first, let the record reflect, please, that we have a quorum present. Before we begin, let me remind everybody that this meeting, like most Aleppo meetings, is being recorded and streamed live over the internet. So that means a couple different things. That means, first of all, that folks could be watching from afar that we don't see here. So just because you only see a few faces here does not mean that you know everybody that's watching. The second thing that means is that when this meeting finishes, whenever we're done, at the end of the evening, the video automatically posts to YouTube where it's available by anybody at any time forever. So all that together means be on your best behavior because you can't take back anything that you say. So with that admonition out of the way, I will entertain a motion to approve the April 15th, 2019 legislative meeting minutes.
I move to approve the April 15, 2019 legislative meeting minutes. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item number one on our old business is a report on the parkland on Weber Road survey results. So we have one of our residents here. Take it away.
All right. I have a handout for you. I was actually going to have you pass it along, but since you're here by yourself.
I can do it. You got it? Okay.
Can you pass those down?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Don Black from Weber Road. I'm here to present the results of the survey taken regarding the green space on Weber Road. Several months ago, there was a presentation given regarding a green space between the 500 blocks of Weber and Ingleside. 3 examples were given as to how this space could best be utilized. Suggestions included walkways, a gazebo, benches, and plantings. That idea evolved into possibly including a children's play area. It was determined that a survey would be developed to reach out for neighborhood input. The survey included residents within a 5-minute walk of the proposed green space, which began at Weber and continued through Tega K. The survey asked the following 3 questions. Number 1, would you like a green space, walkway, benches, etc.? Number 2, would you like a children's play area? If so, please indicate in the comments section what type of play area. Number 3, would you like a combination green space with a play area? Surveys were mailed on April 5th with a requested return date of April 19th. We gave them a 2-week period. 83 surveys were mailed. 5 were returned by the post office due to vacancy, etc. A total of 78 surveys were successfully delivered. Of the 78, 43 were returned for a response rate of 55%, which is 10% above the benchmark for mailed surveys in 2018. 2 were returned with comments only, no preferences were given. That left 41. 31 of the 41 responses, or 75.6%, selected a combination green space and play area. 10 of the 41, or 24.4%, selected a green space. General comments were as follows. Residents who reside in adjoining lots to the proposed green space should be given a greater weight. Cost concerns were expressed and some creative ideas were suggested. Swings, slides, climbing structures, basketball court, picnic tables, and bike path were suggested. Also, one resident indicated that her kids would love a swimming pool and included a smiley face on her survey. It's important to note, and I really want to emphasize, several residents expressed gratitude to the commissioners for being included in this process and for reaching out for their opinions. I would like to thank the commissioners for providing me the opportunity to reach out to my neighbors and reiterate how much our neighbors appreciated being included in this exercise. I would like to extend my appreciation to Gwen for her leadership and guidance through this exercise. Could not have done it without her. Kim was instrumental in providing our tools, labels, envelopes, postage. Thanks, Kim. And thanks to my neighbor and good friend Arthur for helping stuff envelopes. He said he would work for food, and we still owe him a dinner. So that is what I have, and if there are any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Well, I don't have a question. I mean, I have a couple questions, but at first I have to say you've given thanks to everybody else. I think the true thanks goes to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate
For a
it.
job well done.
Thank you very much.
Truly.
I truly appreciate that.
Does anybody, I don't want to take.
Yeah, I think the involvement of the community was a good idea, and you followed through with that. Were there any members of the community that were especially interested?
Yes.
Were there some residents that were particularly interested in the concept?
Based on some of the comments, yeah, definitely. I mean, we had some real, Gwen has the copies of all the survey, if she wants to share them with you. There were several very, very favorable. Yeah, the majority were favorable, yeah.
You know, my point is, if there were 41 people and we could find 3 enthusiasts, I'm just throwing out a number, then they can be actively involved in the next steps. It would be hard to coordinate 41 people being active in the next steps.
Yeah,
But I think when it comes down to deciding whether it's a dirt hill with cardboard boxes or a fancy swing set,
right.
the neighbors should be involved continuously. So if
Sure.
you can think about maybe 3 people that you think would be very enthusiastic, let us know.
I'll try to do that. We did not ask people, we gave them an option of signing their name and their address. So a lot of these are
That's all right.
just, we don't know who made all the comments. But I'll try to think of, does Gwen have something there? Did you have something to offer?
We have all the comments. We have a fantastic spreadsheet developed by the black team, who they both worked on it, I'll say. And we can go through and kind of figure out who we think, Don and I can meet again and say who we
Yeah.
think it might be good to recommend for a committee, if that's what you're suggesting.
And then to refresh my memory, have we identified funding sources?
Not specifically, there are park funding sources out there, and since we don't have any, we will have, more points on a ranking system, because this would be our first park. And I know that HRG maintains a lot of those grant things and lists and opportunities, and would be willing to work with us to
And I think
find
if I
money.
recall, the COG got some grants for some parks.
Mhm.
Yes. I forget whether it was Bellevue or something, but
Mhm.
could you notify the COG
Sure.
and begin to determine what funding sources other than internal?
There was a suggestion, for example, buying bricks with
Yeah.
your name on it. Or maybe some of the local businesses might want to contribute with, put their
Good.
name on a bench or dedicate a bench.
Yep.
I would probably dedicate a bench or,
Yes.
a piece of playground equipment, something like that. And they could make a name for themselves in the
Well,
community.
this was professionally done.
Well, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
So do we have actions coming out of this? Do we want to make a motion? Is there something that we're doing?
I don't think a motion. I'd like to organize a next meeting with some residents. I'd be happy to participate. I don't think that takes a motion. No. No, we've got the first step. People think it's a good idea.
Yes, definitely. Well,
Because if the neighbors thought it was a bad idea, it stops.
yeah, 75% of respondents were all in favor, sure.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Very
Thank you
well
all.
done, thank you. Okay, anybody else have any other old business? All right, turning then to new business. Item A, Verizon covered parking plan.
We have the engineer here, and this is a plan, the lot from the other side of the water garage, the authority's garage. It's the fenced lot that Verizon has had a long-term lease there. It's been temporarily being used by Amazon drivers, but Verizon is going to be reusing it. And they submitted a land development plan to talk about just a few of the changes that they want to make to the lot.
Okay? Come on up.
This is gonna be good video here as I put this together.
All right.
That worked.
I told you. Thank you, Glenn.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know. I'll try to get it facing you commissioners and the camera if you can. So my name is John Zegan. I'm with Osborne Engineering. As Gwen mentioned, I'm the civil engineer of record for Verizon on this project. And the intent is simply to put up some covering structures for some of the parking spaces there to allow Verizon to protect their trucks that they use in the case of an outage due to weather, especially during the snowy weather in the winter. And then in addition to that, they also want to switch to higher efficiency lights in the parking lot lighting. And then there'll be some additional security lighting under these structures. I brought some additional exhibits today, which, Gwen, can you?
Pass them around.
Thank you. And these exhibits are just showing examples from the manufacturer of the exact same installation that we're looking for. So it's simply...
Zegan, can I interrupt you and ask a question?
Sure,
Are these available? Do you have these that you can send as a PDF or something?
absolutely. Yeah, I just downloaded them from the internet earlier today, so.
Do you consider these to be a public document that I can share with residents?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you make sure that Gwen gets a copy of these, please?
Sure.
Great, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, thank you. So, again, the idea is to cover 40 of the parking spaces for the trucks that will now be parking there, as Gwen mentioned, in lieu of the Amazon vehicles that are there today. And upgrade the lighting to something modern and energy efficient, and then add security lighting underneath the structures, because then there'll be no daylight, so there'll be visibility via that security lighting, and the lighting will be on timers. There's also going to be some additional accessory use, I'll call it, in terms of some storage. So these trucks that are involved in servicing the network out in the community also install the replacement poles and cables when there's damage or an expansion of service. So they'd like to store the poles there and the cable along with the trucks, and we've identified those areas on the site plan. So in the corner nearer to the municipal building and property here is the low end of the property. As you know, everything runs out this way. So they want to do the real storage and the pole storage down there at the bottom, just in case anything were to happen, something were to start rolling, it wouldn't roll across the parking lot and possibly damage a vehicle or fence or leave the property. Speaking of fences, there's an existing security fence around the parking lot today. That's going to remain as is, but there will be some additional conduit installed along the back of the fence that carries the power to outdoor receptacles, which are there for engine block heaters for the truck. So again, when it's cold, they plug these trucks in at night so they're ready to go if there's an emergency. So that's the full scope. No changes to the paving, other than there will be some restriping associated with blocking out these parking spaces that'll be temporarily used for storage. And there's a small area in the top right-hand corner of the exhibit where they're going to switch to angle parking, so there's less impact to the number of parking spaces.
probably not to this level of detail yet, but I would like you to take a look at the area lighting being down lighting.
It is,
So
it
it's
is.
fine.
So we have developed those details. I didn't bring them because frankly, we didn't submit them for record when we first came in. They weren't ready yet. But it is downlighted. So one of the things we have our electrical engineers doing is preparing what's called a photometric study, which means they actually model the topography and put the intended lights out there, and then they can kind of predict how much light is going to be on the ground in different areas. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Has this been to planning and zoning?
It has been through the planning commission. You have in your packet HRG's review letter, so they reviewed it in advance of the planning commission. The applicants came to the planning commission, it was discussed there, and the planning commission voted to recommend to approve. And they had one sort of condition, which was subject to investigating a possible requirement that the industrial park is to loop the water line from North Drive to Overlook Drive at the time of any development on North Drive. We were able to locate an old developer's agreement between the authority and the industrial park. I've sent it to Harlan, and he's going to be addressing that with industrial park ownership, and is going to be prepared to give a report on that next week in advance of your vote next week. But as far as engineering, it has cleared all of HRG's recommendations.
Okay. So is there a motion that we're preparing to make for next week?
Yeah, I guess I would suggest that we approve the recommendations of the planning committee and also the input received from the engineer.
I think we have to have a to what end.
Okay.
Well, we'll be moving to approve the project.
Motion to approve. How much want me to say?
I would say motion to approve the Verizon covered parking lot plan as recommended by the engineer and planning commission.
Okay, so it says motion to approve the Verizon covered parking lot plan as recommended by the planning commission. What do you want to say about this input from the engineer?
And engineer.
Use his firm's name. What's your firm's name?
Osborne Engineering, OSBORN,
Well, it's HRG is the one that reviewed it.
correct.
Okay,
Right?
yes.
Maybe put these submitted before Verizon. Just motion to approve these submitted. Good?
Looks good to me.
You happy with that?
Yep.
You happy with that?
Yep.
You happy with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with the motion drafted, I will make a motion to defer for 1 week. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, so we're voting on the motion to defer for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. We will vote on this next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Item B under new business, Amazon parking lot on North Drive parcel.
This is basically an FYI, the industrial park ownership met with us, a couple of us here, and wanted to introduce themselves and to introduce an upcoming project because, and it ties into this Verizon plan, because Verizon will be reclaiming their lot, which is the fence lot right over here. they need to find staging area and parking for the Amazon employees. So the ownership submitted just this drawing, there's not a plan or anything yet, we haven't gotten a plan yet, but they just wanted to let the public be aware and let the commissioners be aware that they intend to try to develop this.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt for 1 second. Mr. Zegan, before you take off, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
You said these are public document, you'll get a copy of these for Gwen. How about the big thing that you had on the easel? Can you get
submitted.
you have a copy of that, Gwen?
I'm sure, electronically?
I
Yeah.
can put it all back together for you.
That would be easier if you put it all together in one
Great.
email, then I can forward that
And you
on.
consider that to be a public document as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
So they plan to develop this parcel here into a parking area for Amazon cars. So this was just the very preliminary, let you know this is what people are talking about.
Okay. You have a copy of that you can send along for the digest?
I do.
Great.
Does this have any impact whatsoever on the trucks parked along Deer Run?
No.
That's a different,
No.
I know it's
Company.
different, I just asked.
yeah. Something we're keeping in mind as we think about how this, an application like this will be treated. That's something that Harlan's talking
Okay.
about. Yes.
And to add to that, having attended the meeting, time is of the essence. They would like to do this quickly, correct?
Yes.
Which I think will be beneficial to us because it will
Mhm.
coordinate the traffic.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, item C, new business, second exit from Manor for emergency use.
This was put on the agenda because it pops up every couple of years. The Sewickley Heights Manor neighborhood has one road in and one road out, and various emergency services have recommended over the years that there be a second access point in the case of a really bad situation where they need to get cars in and out. There is one utility easement that runs from a section of the manor, I don't know what road name in the manor, down to Vecchio Drive. And this has come up in prior meetings, prior minutes over the years, and I know that the fire chief is in favor of this. So in some discussion, there was thought of actually doing the next step, which would maybe be engaging HRG to study this and come up with an actual feasibility plan for how a secondary access might work.
Okay.
This runs along the edge of Mr. Vecchio's property.
Yes. On the upper side.
So there's room enough to be effective?
For an emergency, it would not be a road that
No,
would be
no.
used all the time. It would be
I
for
clearly
emergencies.
understand that,
Yeah.
right.
Let's just make sure we all see what we're talking about here. So, where are we talking about here?
Right,
Head toward guest parking,
Right there.
correct?
yes,
That would kind of-
right there. yeah.
Okay. So connecting Little Hollow and Vecchio.
Yes, that's,
Okay. So is there a motion?
Yes, I move to authorize HRG to assess and prepare preliminary plans for a second exit from Sewickley Heights Manor, connecting Little Hollow and Vecchio Drive.
The only thing I would change to this, how do I spell Vecchio?
VESHIO,
Yes?
yes.
For a second, for a emergency second exit.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. So with that motion on the table and seconded, I'll make a motion to defer for 1 week. Is there a second on the subsidiary motion to defer? There's a motion and a second. On the motion to defer for 1 week, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Thank you. We will vote on this next week. Next, Sewickley Memorial Day donation request.
You had insight into this last year?
My recollection last year is that we talked about giving more money and we decided not to, and I don't see any reason for us to do any more than we ever have in the past this year.
And last year we gave,
250.
$250.
I move to contribute $250 to the Sewickley Memorial Day celebration.
Second.
Okay, so same story. With a motion and a second, I'll make a motion to defer this for 1 week.
Second?
There is a motion and a second on the subsidiary motion to defer for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries. Excellent, thank you. Okay, next. Request for board support, Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. One of our residents is here to speak on this. Mr. Kelly, it's all yours.
Matt, if you could you bring up a browser and do a quick search for me to help bring people up to speed?
You gotta get on that microphone though, please.
Sorry. Do a search under CCL, the basics of carbon fee and dividend. That'll provide a backdrop for what I have to say.
What you want?
Yep. That's the one. My name is Tim Kelly. I live at 205 Trailside Drive. I volunteer for a national grassroots organization known as Citizens Climate Lobby. We are a volunteer group with chapters active in every congressional district. CCL was created specifically to address the climate and oceans crisis through the creation of a carbon fee and dividend law on the federal level. We welcome support from businesses, individuals, and governments of all sizes. Last year I approached you about this topic, and unfortunately the legislation did not yet exist. That became the sticking point. That has changed. This year, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, H.R. 763, was introduced in the current Congress and is currently gaining support on many levels: corporate, governmental, faith groups. Everybody's jumping on board. To bring people up to speed on this, what carbon fee and dividend does is it taxes carbon-based fuel sources at the point they enter the economy. That money goes into a fund. Administrative costs alone are taken out, and the rest of the money goes back to the American consumer in the form of a monthly dividend check. Matt, if you scroll down just a little bit, please. You can see from the graphic, they have some preliminary figures on that. Producing a gallon of gas emits 5 pounds of CO2. Burning a gallon of gasoline emits 19 pounds of CO2. That CO2 is equivalent to like 1.011 metric tons. Each $10 metric ton adds 11 cents to the gallon. The fee would start off at $15 a ton and increase every year by $10 a ton. If you move down a little bit more, Matt, please. This graph shows what the dividend would look like for an average family of 4 over time. And you start off in, say, 2022, it'd be somewhere around just under $250 a month for a family of 4, moving up by 2035 to just under $400. So the average family of 4 would net somewhere around $3,400 a year in return funds. The whole purpose is to try to push people towards cleaner sources of energy, and thus lower our emissions. It's projected to drop our emissions somewhere around 40% by 2035. Eventually, as the problem is abated, then it would eventually go away. You could get a whole lot more complicated about it, but due to time constraints, I'm going to stop there. I only have two requests. You've been provided with the legislation in advance, so you've had a chance to study it. We'd like to see a statement of support from this board. In your own words, it's fine. Matt has the link to the page in order to do that. The only other request I would have is to let people know about us. We have a chapter here in Sewickley in District 17. We need people. This is a big job, and the more folks we can get, the better. And I'll stop there.
Okay, so, thank you. Thanks for coming. I have stuff to say, but does anybody else want to talk first?
I just have one simple question. How does the money get back to the individual?
It would go back, it would be mailed from the federal government. in the form
Stay on the
of-
microphone, please.
I'm sorry. It would be provided as a monthly dividend through check or perhaps direct deposit. Those are details would have to research for you, George. It's probably still in the works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's not included in the legislation as what vehicle they would use, then we'd have to go somewhere else and find an answer for you. But I'd be happy to do that. Yes,
I
Art?
have a little problem with the math. If you're going to tax that at, starting at $10.
It's
and-
$15 a ton per ton of CO2 content.
Okay, and going up over a period of time,
Mhm.
and the CO2 emissions would be going down, then when will that go flat?
Oh, that's a very good question. I can't answer that for you. I can try to get some research on that for you.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. Somebody's gonna ask the same question I'm asking.
I'll tell you what, I will get the information for you on that.
Okay,
Okay, I'll provide that for you.
So, here's what I'm willing to do. Well, let me start by talking first, okay? I have to say that I honestly like HR 763, and I like it, and I know about it because you brought it to my attention, and I researched it because you asked us to, and frankly, I wouldn't have known anything about it, but I have, since you sent us the emails, I've looked into it, and I've read a lot of articles about it. And I'm impressed by it. I think it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting way to solve a problem that everybody recognizes as a problem. It seems to get broad bipartisan support, and I think that's great. And I personally am in favor of it. I'm interested in seeing where it goes. I will therefore be willing to make a motion for us to, and I'm going to put this down here. Motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. Okay, so I'm making a motion for the board to draft a statement in support of HR 763. However, I want to say, I don't know that you're going to get a second out of this. And I don't know that I'm necessarily encouraging the board to get a second. I'm making this motion because I appreciate your interest, and I think that it's important to, when our residents come in and they want us to take action, I think it's important that we consider that action. For me to talk against my own motion is a little oddity, but while I do think HR 763 is a great idea, and I think it's interesting and fascinating, I'm not sure I know where our municipality fits into that. And I don't know that I think it's a good, wait, now I know what you're gonna say, so let me say both things first. I don't know that it's a good, I just don't know that we as a local government really have a role in supporting or not supporting federal legislation. And that just, Tim, it's not something, Mr. Kelly, excuse me, it's not something that we do on a regular basis. We've never, how long have we been on this, 6 years?
yeah.
We've never done one like this before. We've never done this. So it seems, it's the kind of thing that I want to be weary of. And frankly, my inclination is to say that we not do it, because because we've never done that before. That being said, my pendulum swings back and forth, right? On the other hand, I recognize that there are certainly things I could conceive of that if there were federal legislation, we would say, let's support that for sure. One thing that comes to mind is if there were all of a sudden federal legislation that popped up that were saying all local municipalities nationwide are permitted to use radar, we would be writing a motion, a statement in support of that. So the one thing I think is dangerous for us to do is to make a precedent of saying we don't write statements in support or against federal legislation, because again, I could certainly conceive of an issue coming in here that was something we thought we should be supporting. So with all that, again, I want to support you, and I want to put the action forward and put it up for a vote. But number one, you need to get a second tonight, and then you need to get a vote of 3 next week. So go ahead.
Matt, if I could offer a quick response.
Sure, of course.
I get it. I understand where you're at. But these are unconventional times. This is an unconventional threat like nothing we've ever seen before. And, you know, the elephant's in the room. I have in my pocket right now a list of municipalities that, and individual members of municipal boards, mayors, et cetera, that have signed on.
Who's on that list?
Oh, God, it's too long. Hold on. See if I can find this. Okay. Here's a quick, okay, Kevin Beckford, Councilman, Town of Pittsburgh, New York, Pittsford, New York. Seth Berry, Representative, Maine House of Representatives. Jackie Lubinsky, Salt Lake City Mayor. John Bonnet's Town Commissioner, Town of Pittsburgh, Massachusetts.
Tim, excuse me.
There's a ton of them. I mean, I could provide you with the list, a
Tim.
link to the list.
Excuse me, is there a municipality?
Yes. Well, originally, when I approached you, remember, the city of Philadelphia had signed on and the city of San Francisco as well. Let's see. They're individual Maine state representatives, city council members, former mayors. Unfortunately, I can't pull up a municipality at this time, but there are out there. I can get the entire list for you, George, if you want to do that.
I am going to second the motion because it's only to prepare a draft. That draft, I assume, would come under review for further discussion. You can add additional information during that process.
Fair enough.
You and I have talked about this before. My reluctance is that the risk and the benefit. We are representing every resident of Aleppo Township. You are coming to us as an individual right now, with perhaps broad support, perhaps not. So the risk is that we are supporting something which is more a personal support, but we're actually representing all the residents of Aleppo Township. And I don't have a good database to determine whether that's something the residents of Aleppo Township want, okay? And then the reward that I weigh against that is what benefit is a letter of support from Aleppo Township in regard to the passage of this bill? What are we really helping you and the bill do by providing the letter of support?
Well, maybe the next
We're
time he
helping
goes to some
manifest political
municipality-
will.
Pardon me?
We're helping grow political will for the passage of this.
All right, and isn't 1,000 signature petition better than a municipality of 1,900 people?
We're working it from every angle we
Okay,
can,
no,
George.
These are questions I'm asking.
I understand
And
where you're
I've
coming
already seconded the
from.
motion.
But Vice President Jones, maybe the next time he goes to the next municipality and they say to him the same thing that you
You're
and I
right.
just asked and said, are there any other municipalities that have signed on to this? Maybe one of them says, yeah, Aleppo did. And they say, oh, all right, well, there's one.
I just want to make sure that we're on firm ground.
Yeah.
I understand, George. I'll give you whatever supplemental information you need. Art, if you could draft that question, so I have it in a portable form, then, or have Gwen email it, I'll make sure and research that for you and try to get better numbers for you.
Solicitor Lovato, do you have a two-sentence comment, or?
I believe that you are able to endorse it, but it is fairly rare, so make sure that I think all the questions you're bringing up are the correct ones.
Okay. Well, there's a motion and a second. You know, everybody always says when you get what you asked for, stop talking. So we got a motion and a second.
Thank you, sir.
With the motion and the second, I'll make a motion to defer for 1 week.
I have one discussion point. Who is going to work on the draft?
Well, we're not even there yet. We're gonna,
Okay.
we'll
Okay,
we'll
good.
talk about that next week.
Good.
So there's a motion and a second to defer for 1 week. No, there's not a second. There's a motion to defer for 1 week. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to defer for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
I'm going
opposed?
to, I'm going to abstain until I have that piece of information, because it's so basic to whether this works mathematically or not when you're fighting the engineering parts of it. So I'd like,
So you can't abstain unless you have a conflict of interest. And
I have
further-
no conflict of interest,
So then you can't abstain.
okay?
So, and furthermore, we're only voting on a subsidiary motion. We're voting to defer it for 1 week.
Okay.
So, and furthermore, if you don't vote to defer it for 1 week, then we have to take action on the main motion tonight.
No, I'll vote for,
Okay, so let's go again. All those in favor, the motion is to defer for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Good, that motion carries. We'll vote on the main motion of whether or not we're actually gonna draft the statement in support next week, and hopefully, between then, you two will close that gap, and you'll
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll do my best, Art.
We either have a number or we don't, but I think it's, you know, any graph that goes at 45 degrees, I have a basic distrust.
So Tim,
I understand.
Tim, remember, I've asked two questions. How does the money come back to the citizen? And give us an example of municipalities' letters of support.
I'll do my best.
Okay? We'll see
Thank you
next
very
week.
much. I
Come
appreciate
back
it.
next week, Tim?
Next week?
Yep,
What night?
Monday?
I'll be here.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
next item of new business, NIMS resolution.
Here it is. Judy's gonna be here next week to give a report on this and the revised EOP, so we can talk about this next week. I'm not gonna ask for a vote next week because I feel like we should all hear from Judy first about what exactly she's asking the board to do.
So you've said everything that needs to be said about NIMS resolution.
I have.
Okay. Next item of new business is a sad note from me. My family has accepted a offer for somebody to buy our house in Aleppo Township. We'll be closing on that on June 28th. So we will be moving out of Aleppo Township, which means that I will need to resign my position on the board. I'm sure that all of you who have worked with me or sat in the audience over the last 6 years know that I love a prepared statement. So sometime between now and the time that I resign, I'll be happy to give a lengthy prepared statement. But I thought that it was worth me telling you that the contract to sell our house went into effect last week. So I thought it was worthwhile to let everybody know that that will be coming. I won't give a formal letter of resignation until a little closer to the time that I'm going to resign, but my last meeting will be the workshop meeting in June. I'm sorry, the legislative meeting in June. So that's that. Okay, any other new business? Citizen participation.
Oh, well, excuse me. One thing. In communications, there was a car parked on Swickley Heights Drive today, right on the median strip, and I got a comment, why? So I talked to both Swickley Heights Manor and to Gwen, and apparently that's the only portion of Aleppo Township with road dividers, with median strips. So we have no ordinance that would give the police any ability to enforce. And I talked to Swickley Heights Manor, they have nothing within their community bylaws either. It seems funny to me that there is nothing you can do about somebody parking right in the middle on a medial strip. median strip. So I think we should investigate that. What can we do?
Is the median strip wide enough to have the car?
Well, it takes the whole width of the strip. Now, this was kind of a special medical situation, we discovered later. But the Swickley Heights Manor Board and we could work together to see if there is something we can do, and I recommend that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to take some action? Do you want to authorize the solicitor looking? Do you want to do something, or do you just want to lob it out there and watch it spin around and
Investigate that.
uncertainty?
All right, so I move to authorize our solicitor to investigate, is ordinances the proper term? Chris?
Yeah, our solution or.
To allow for enforcement of parking on township property.
How about on median strips?
Maybe.
Is that what you want? Parking on median strips or just parking on random?
Well, I think if somebody pulled into the driveway and parked on the grass, that might apply too. I don't know.
How about parking on median strips and other township property?
Correct.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. With that motion and a second, I'll make a motion to defer for 1 week.
Second.
Motion and a second to defer for 1 week. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. The motion carries. We will vote on that next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now, citizen participation.
Art Capuzzi, Weber Road. Excuse me. Matt, we're going to have a real loss. I appreciate the work you've done, and you and I go back
That's right.
quite a while,
Sure.
30 years probably.
Yep.
I guess I've had a question that's been driving me crazy for a couple of years. The state versus, I think, Reading said that citizens can add before a vote is taken on issues. I get the impression that we can't, that is held until the end of the meeting. I don't go along with this, whatever this bill was. Statistically, you can make a graph look like anything you want. And I'm not so naive that if you tax a coal company or a petroleum company, they're going to pass that right on to the consumer, take away the administrative cost. I don't see how we're going to get a benefit back from that. That graph will never go flat.
Right.
Absolutely not. You should know more about governmental agencies. They become self-perpetual. I don't doubt or say that we have a climate issue. Tax is never the problem to those types of answers. I don't care how you say it. A fee is a tax. A licensing is a tax. It's that simple. I object that you're even considering to put together a motion to support this. And, you know, just because all these other places do it, he's talking about places that are very liberal. Pittsford, New York, I know about Rochester, and Pittsford's right next door. You start talking about Salt Lake City, I don't know. I won't be here next week. So I guess I'm expressing real frustration that, again, I don't get the impression that we can get up and say, can I ask a question? And if you go online, the state says just about in every place, yes, the citizens should be able to ask questions before the commissioners vote on a motion. Now, I know that you deferred till next week. Understood. I appreciate that. But I guess I want to express that, and I'm not at all in favor of this bill until you present more of it to the public in the community. Yes, you're making a decision for all of Aleppo Township. And yes, we need more information. And I don't understand if he abstained that you'd have to vote on the main issue. Why? Why couldn't he, well, if he voted no, the two of you would pass it anyway because it's a majority. I understand. But I think you're getting ahead. I think you're running ahead here. And I've never known, at least you for sure, to do something because someone else did it. You always were more analytical to look at all the benefits. I don't have any objections that you may support it individually, as many people in the community will. But I just don't like the idea of they're going to charge a fee, they're going to charge whatever. It always is passed on to the consumer. It's that simple. And do you think we would get that money back directly? Do you think every penny that goes into the Pennsylvania lottery even begins to end up for senior citizens? I've been a senior citizen for a while. I never saw any of that money. You know, so I apologize about my hesitant speech because I'm very frustrated. I'm quite frustrated over this. I wish that you would take more consideration before you even begin to draft a statement.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you
No,
off.
no, go
I
ahead.
want to
I'm
make sure you
sorry.
understand that the motion that we voted on tonight was to defer it till next week. So for all we know, and again, just because I've made the motion, I'm not encouraging anybody to vote in favor of that motion. All we're saying is that next week we'll take action on that issue. So we may vote against it.
Of just drafting the statement.
Yeah, we may not even vote to draft the statement.
All right. I wanted to express myself. That's
Well,
all.
Art, I think it was a good expression, so thank you for expressing it.
Absolutely.
And I think you're validating my concern, that we represent the entire community. So now I
Yes.
have one voice much in favor, I have one voice much against.
I also.
But Art, here's the other part of what you're saying. On several occasions, for very simple votes, we have always allowed 30 days for the public to watch the video and comment, always.
You have.
And that applies to this as well.
Yeah.
So I think this one hit you the wrong way,
Well,
but at the same time, I'm glad that you are reiterating your desire, which is our desire, to have the public involved whenever.
you know, Mr. Black and Gwen, Kim worked on all this survey for the park, and, you know, I thought they had a pretty good return on it.
Professional result.
And we run into people in the community, number one, they're totally unaware of what's going on. Secondly, they're apathetic because they don't feel as if whatever they think, it won't matter. So I'm particularly sensitive to that. It was surprising, the people we talked to, how they volunteered their opinion. But enough said. And yes, you've always given the public an opportunity. You've never jumped right into something. But hey, someone can stand up here and tell you whatever they want to say. I can pull out a book right now and tell you about all the famous people I know. But yeah, can I verify that? No. You know, and he didn't mention one municipality. They were all individuals. And again, that's what America's all about. An individual can express themselves. So I guess I'm worried about a slippery slope. Matt, you're absolutely right. There may be something in the future that we would want to jump on right away. But I don't know what your role would be in a federal bill. You know,
You're saying,
all
you're
right.
saying everything that I feel. And I agree that you are reaffirming my concern here, is
Yeah.
that I don't know enough about this. I don't know that I'm necessarily in a position to take a position because I don't know enough about it. I know what I've read in a couple articles online, and I know that there are people that are gonna have strong feelings on both sides of this issue, so I don't know. But we'll keep working on it.
All right.
And furthermore,
And you will.
if you wanna write us a statement to be read next week, I'd love to read a statement from you next week.
Well,
Arthur, I would agree that I was asked you to do that.
It can be brief.
You have vocalized it quite well.
well, I won't be able to put that in writing. And I really selfishly have a pretty full schedule
Okay.
coming up. I volunteer in a number of places, and I apologize for that. If I can get it together,
Okay.
I would. But again, I won't be here next week. I know you won't do any action that would pass, but I just wish you would take a little more consideration into it. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Just a suggestion, you've now been taped.
I understand, yes,
So would you give us permission perhaps to use that?
absolutely. If this was 30 years ago, I would probably be up on that desk. But, I've kind of passed the torch on to the other people, but when you don't like the direction they're running, I still have to say something. And it's not here, it's the bill itself. Again, that's all. But no, absolutely. I would love this to get out more into the public. First of all, to have them understand administrative costs. He didn't give us a number about administrative costs, and we've heard in the past how agencies take 40, 50, 60, 70% of that money. And anytime you tax a corporation or have them get a license, it immediately is passed to the consumer. That's all.
So Art, since we're being recorded to the general public, anyone who happens to be listening, should you have an opinion on this issue, please transmit it.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Having no further business, having no executive session, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's